Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, well, we're digging into just one source, but it reveals something huge, a real strategic battlefront in the global AI race. And the price tag, it's frankly staggering. We're talking about a $15 billion bet by Google. Now, that number, it points to a monumental new AI initiative from Google. It's not just about adding more capacity. It's designed to strategically shift where the world's most advanced AI work actually gets done. So our mission today is to unpack this whole plan laid out right here in the source material. We're really focusing on the strategy, the why behind deploying this much capital. It feels like it's about global positioning, and geography suddenly matters a lot.
It absolutely does, yeah. And let's start with the core facts, the ones right there in the document. Google is planning to build what they're calling its single largest AI data center outside the United States. That's more than just news about a new building, isn't it? It feels like a geopolitical statement. And this huge hub, it's slated for India.
Right. And when you look at the sheer scale, I mean, that $15 billion figure just leaps off the page. We see big tech investments, sure, but the source frames this one as the largest AI-focused project of its kind they've ever done internationally. So like you said, this isn't just some regional expansion. This is building a strategic global asset.
Precisely. And the location, the specificity of where, that's what really elevates this. It's not just a number, it's a place. The site chosen for this enormous investment is Visakhapatnam. That's in the state of Andhra Pradesh.
Visakhapatnam. Okay,
Yes.
so it's not Mumbai or Bangalore, the places you might first think of as established tech hubs in India.
Yeah.
Which makes you ask the critical question the source kind of hints at. Why Visakhapatnam? What is it about this location that makes it the spot for Google's biggest AI engine outside the U.S.? The source doesn't give us the boardroom meeting notes, obviously, but we can piece together the likely thinking.
Yeah, we can definitely connect some dots based on what we know about these kinds of projects.
Right.
First off, this investment, it's spread out over the next 5 years. So that signals a long-term commitment, and that demands stability. Infrastructure stability. And while the source might not detail every single reason Visakhapatnam or Vizag, it offers some really attractive features, crucial features for something this compute intensive.
Okay, like what?
Well, first, connectivity. Vizag's a coastal city.
Yeah.
It has access to critical subsea cable landing points. That's vital, absolutely vital for high-speed, low-latency, global data flow.
Right, the digital pipelines.
Exactly. Second, you've got to think about government cooperation. Big infrastructure projects like this, they depend heavily on, state incentives, smooth permitting. It suggests they've likely secured a very favorable regulatory environment there in Andhra Pradesh. And maybe the biggest thing for an AI center, power. Reliable, scalable power. Running these next-gen AI models takes an astronomical amount of electricity.
That makes a lot of sense. So they're not just looking for, cheap land. They need those global digital arteries you mentioned and a solid promise of power for decades. It really connects the abstract idea of AI compute back to very physical things like cable ports and power grids.
And if we look at the immediate goals the source points to, the purpose seems pretty clear. It's about boosting local AI innovation, yes, but also strengthening India's overall cloud infrastructure nationally. And importantly, creating thousands of high-value tech jobs, specifically in Andhra Pradesh, so it ties that global capacity goal directly to local economic benefits.
Okay, let's dive a bit deeper then into the tech side. The necessity driving this $15 billion number. We need to get past just calling it a data center. The language used is more like foundational shift, strategic asset. So what's the key difference between this facility and, say, a standard regional cloud center? The kind where companies host websites or store regular data.
Yeah, that's the essential distinction, really. A standard regional cloud center is built mainly for customer hosting, general purpose stuff. This facility, though, it seems designed for the, let's say, the sharp end of the AI spear. The technical goals highlighted in the source are about deploying cutting-edge infrastructure and scaling compute capacity.
Okay.
So this center probably isn't primarily for general customers. It's more likely dedicated to the really heavy lifting, high-end, maybe proprietary foundational model training, advanced AI research, the kind of high-performance computing needed for these massive language models. This is potentially where Google trains its next generation of products. That makes it a critical strategic node, not just another service hub.
That leads directly to the hardware, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The source talks about cutting-edge infrastructure, implying proprietary tech. We're probably talking specialized chips here, not just racks of standard servers.
Exactly. And this is where Google has a potential edge. When they talk about deploying cutting-edge infrastructure, this almost certainly points to deploying their own internally designed tensor processing units. TPUs.
Ah, right, the TPUs.
Yeah. These are specialized processors, custom built by Google specifically for machine learning tasks. Unlike the general-purpose GPUs that many competitors rely on, TPUs are optimized for those really specific, iterative calculations you need for training massive AI models. They let Google potentially achieve higher computational density, maybe even better energy efficiency for these particular AI workloads. So this $15 million is, in effect, buying them a significant proprietary speed advantage located outside the US. And that kind of scale raw compute power, that's a real bottleneck in AI right now. Whoever can stand up the fastest, largest dedicated compute capacity, well, they're positioned to win the race to the next generation of models.
Okay, let's unpack this. So we often hear these analogies, right? The AI race is like searching for the fastest car. If TPUs are those specialized custom-built engines, Google is basically building this enormous custom racetrack in Visakhapatnam, just for its own fastest engine. Is that a fair way to think about it?
That's a pretty good analogy, yeah. It captures the scale and the specialization.
But, infrastructure alone, that racetrack, it won't win the race by itself. Google seems to recognize they need the talent, the drivers, to actually use this massive engine effectively.
Right, and that connects perfectly to the second critical piece of their strategy that the source mentions, ecosystem development.
Ah, yes, the plan to support startups and local developers.
Exactly. This shows it's an integrated strategy. You can pump $15 billion into hardware, the physical infrastructure, but that only solves half the puzzle. Like your analogy, build the best racetrack. But if nobody knows how to drive those custom cars, the investment doesn't pay off. So by supporting startups, supporting local talent, Google is trying to ensure that those computational resources get used right away by innovators in the region.
So it's building the supply and stimulating the demand simultaneously.
Precisely. They're providing these incredibly valuable, scarce compute resources, the engine room, essentially. And at the same time, they're cultivating the talent and the application development needed to make India not just a user market, but a development center for AI. It really is an investment in local human capital, just as much as it is in silicon and fiber optics.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
now the national implications start to come into focus. This isn't just about Google getting bigger. The source positions this as a major step for India itself.
Yes. The stated ultimate goal, the big aspiration mentioned, which we need to analyze, is that this investment moves India closer to becoming an AI powerhouse. And that phrase, AI powerhouse, it's not just marketing fluff. It signals a real intended shift in global perception and capability.
Why India, though? For this kind of powerhouse ambition, what makes it strategically suited?
Well, if you look at the essential ingredients you need, India has this huge, young, and importantly growing tech talent pool. That's number one. And crucially, there's the policy environment. India is starting to implement stricter data localization laws. That often compels global companies like Google to house significant infrastructure physically within the country's borders.
Ah, so it's partly carrot, partly stick.
You could say that. This $15 billion investment, it's partially a response to that necessity, perhaps, but it's also clearly a proactive grab for future market share and influence. They seem to be trying to get ahead of their main competitors, Microsoft, Amazon, in establishing this level of critical foundational compute capacity right there in the region.
Wait, you mentioned competitors. $15 billion over 5 years. Is that purely offensive, like staking a claim, or is it also playing defense against what Microsoft and Amazon are doing?
I think it's definitely a bit of both. It's a massive offensive move to scale up compute, where Google feels it has a technological edge with the TPUs. But yeah, it's also defensive. They need to ensure they remain highly relevant in the huge, rapidly growing Asia-Pacific market. Competitors are also expanding their cloud footprints there very aggressively.
So it's almost table stakes at this level. You have to make these kinds of bets.
To compete at the highest level in AI infrastructure globally, yes, increasingly so. This kind of capital injection signals that the old model of concentrating all the core compute back in the home market, well, that's changing fast. The distance between the user base and the heavy-duty compute is shrinking.
And for you, the listener, thinking about the domestic impact, this is where those huge abstract numbers become really tangible, right? This isn't just about compute power for Google's internal AI models somewhere far away. It translates directly into economic stimulus. The potential creation of a new, highly skilled local workforce, maybe even a middle class, in Andhra Pradesh, funded by these global tech investments and salaries.
Absolutely. It's localized growth driven by a global objective.
Yeah.
It acknowledges the top-tier talent available in India and, importantly, aims to provide the infrastructure so that talent can work on world-class projects without necessarily having to emigrate to Silicon Valley or elsewhere. This flow of capital, it really signals that AI development is becoming more decentralized, truly global.
It seems like a powerful statement.
It is, and it brings up that important question we touched on earlier. Is $15 billion, even over 5 years, truly enough to solidify India's position as a global AI powerhouse? I mean, it's a huge investment, no question. But the global need for AI infrastructure, we're talking potentially hundreds of billions worldwide.
Yeah.
So this is maybe like a very powerful starting gun. But sustaining that momentum, that requires continuous investment, yes, but also ongoing policy support, stable conditions. This investment certainly forces everyone else's hand. Though other companies, other governments, they now have to react and potentially accelerate their own plans.
It definitely forces the issue, doesn't it? It makes it crystal clear that the AI race isn't just about who writes the cleverest algorithms. It's fundamentally about who controls the reliable power, the regulatory landscape, and crucially, the physical custom hardware to run that code reliably and at a global scale. This announcement makes the physical, geographical reality of AI infrastructure impossible to ignore.
Couldn't agree more.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just quickly recap the key strategic elements from this source. We saw the scale, that massive $15 billion investment over 5 years, Google's largest AI data center outside the US. We established the strategic location, Visakhapatnam, and discussed why that specific coastal spot likely matters, thinking about cables and power. And we confirmed the ultimate purpose, deploying custom cutting-edge infrastructure, probably the TPUs, to foster innovation locally and help solidify India's position as an emerging AI powerhouse, directly challenging global competitors in the process. Thank you for sharing this really crucial source material with us today. It gives such a clear window into the kind of strategic thinking that's shaping the next decade of technology.
My pleasure. It's a fascinating development. And for you, the listener, maybe a final thought to take away, something that builds directly on the ambition laid out in the source material. If this massive $15 billion investment is designed to deploy cutting-edge infrastructure and scale compute capacity over the next 5 years, what specific non-technological challenges do you think Google must overcome right there in Visakhapatnam? Think about things like managing complex regulatory hurdles over a 5-year project timeline, ensuring that power grid reliability holds up against soaring future demand, or even managing local political dynamics and risks. How do they navigate those things successfully to ensure this project truly cements India's position as a permanent global AI leader and not just, a massive center for data processing? The sustained execution over the next 5 years, that's where this $15 billion bet really gets tested.